Welcome to Crafty Beach. I have some fun scarecrow projects for you today. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't, the bell to be notified when I post new videos, and a thumbs up is always appreciated. Okay, I wanted to make scarecrows today. Now, this is my first two. Kind of maybe a his or her. I don't know. And they are from the Dollar Tree, and they're kind of already scarecrows, but they're not great. So what we're going to do is try to make them fit fabulous. So I pulled off the little bow. They had like a little cheap bow around the neck. It was really glued on there though, so I'm struggling to get that off because I don't really want to damage the fabric for the face. So I'm using my heat gun. Now, as you can see, that worked, but it also melted one of his little suspenders there. So I'm going to have to replace that. I kind of want him to be wearing overalls though, so that's okay. I'm going to save the shirt because I think it's kind of cute, but I'm going to go ahead and cut those suspenders off, and I want to try to take his little pants off. So this fabric, I'm kind of scared to use heat on it because it must be made out of plastic because it does kind of melt. So I pulled off his pants, and I'm using my heat gun to try to unglue his hat. I want to replace his hat, and that worked. It kind of melted the fabric and took the hot glue off at the same time. But I want to save his little scarecrow hair, rafia, and so I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now his shirt is kind of cute, so I think that's gonna work. I'm just fixing the fabric where it got pulled up a little bit there on his head, and I want to stuff him a little bit. The thing that makes the scarecrow look the cheapest is that it's flat. There's no stuffing, so it doesn't look like there's hay inside of him. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of fluff from inside of an old pillow, but I also want his arms to stick straight out like a scarecrow would. So I am just going to use some of these dowels from the Dollar Tree and cut them with my miter scissors there, and just kind of pop this in here to make his arms stand up. And I thought you could kind of see it too much on the front, so I did move that to the back. Now, I maybe overstuffed this one a little too much. The next one I don't stuff quite as much, but I'm just hot gluing back down his shirt. The sleeves are kind of super wide, but that's okay. We'll work with it. I don't really want to re-sew that. Now here's his pants. They're kind of fine as is, but I want to brighten them up and make them feel more coastal and to go with my decor. So I'm going to use my favorite color, the Agave Chalk Paint by Waverly, and I'm just going to paint. You can use chalk paint on fabric. I actually did this technique on my outdoor patio furniture. I got cushions that I didn't like the color, and I mixed chalk paint with water and was able to do that, and they turned out really good. So yes, you can chalk paint fabric. Now, this isn't like really fabric. It's like a mixture. It's like a cross between fabric and plastic, I think, by the way that it melted. So I'm just kind of using my foam brush and that agave and kind of pushing it down. It doesn't have to have a perfect coat, but I'm trying to get it as good as I can. I'm using my heat gun, but I'm using it like really far away because I'm afraid that I'm going to melt it. I think that the chalk paint though may have protected it a little bit from the heat because I didn't seem to have any problems with that. So just going to flip that over and use that agave on the front. Now I'm going to try to give him overalls. So these will be the pants to the overalls. And I'm just trying to get good coverage. Now, I can totally use the chalk paint on the pants, but this did take a long time to dry. Maybe because I was a little scared of using heat on it. I tried not to go too crazy, so I decided to hang that up to dry while I worked on the rest of him. Now, this was his little hat. I'm going to save the patch off the hat because I thought that was kind of cute, but the hat, not so much. So I'm going to use some of this burlap. I actually picked this up at Walmart. It's like the wider burlap. than what you can get at the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to make him a simple little scarecrow hat. Now, since I'm going to do two, I'm going to go ahead and cut one for the next scarecrow as well. And I'm just going to roll it into like a cone shape. And then I can pull up the little flap like that. And that's going to be a cute little scarecrow hat. So easy peasy. To secure that, I'm just going to do a bead of hot glue along one side. And then just roll that into a cone shape. And this is definitely an easy way to make a little scarecrow hat. Now, my son was like, you made those? And I'm like, well, yeah, technically I made them, but actually I just took these scarecrows and made them like way cuter. So I'm just trying his hat on to see if it fits. Then I'm like, what am I going to do with this guy's little face? I decided I wanted it to be a little bit lighter. It was kind of a yellow color. And so I'm using this color of chalk paint. I think it's cashew. It's kind of a light beige color. And I am just painting all over. I'm going to go ahead and give him a new face. So it's okay. I can just try to cover up what is already there. Just going around the front and all the edges, having to switch to a little brush to get around his shirt because I don't want to get any paint on his little orange shirt. Now I think that orange shirt's going to go nicely with the light blue overalls. That's going to match my like coastal decor. And these scarecrows today, I'm going to do like just a touch of coastal. You know I have to. I can't resist. So I'm going to go ahead and cover the back of his head just because it looked kind of bad all open like that. I'm just going to use the remnants I have of one of these little burlap bags from the Dollar Tree. Doesn't matter what it is. I just wanted something to cover the back of his head. And while I'm at it, I might as well go ahead and do another one for my second scarecrow that I'm going to be doing. And it even kind of matches with the orange. And I'm just going to attach that to the back with hot glue, just to give my project more of a finished feel. I'm kind of waiting on that paint to dry, and I can still kind of see the face through, so I'm going to go through and do just a light coat over the face area again to try to hide that face so that when I paint the new face on there, you won't be able to see through. Okay, here's my pants. I had them hanging up that whole time and they were still soaking wet with paint. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I gotta use hot glue or hot glue, my hot gun. And I did. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use some of that polyfill from my pillow to stuff the legs. And that really helped. I don't know why they didn't have any stuffing in these things. I guess it's the Dollar Tree. What can I expect, right? So I stuffed the pants. And if you don't want to paint the pants, you totally can't. But stuffing them, I think, is a must. So time to try to put this guy back together. It kind of just goes like that, where the pants go around the back. And it hooks it to the little post for the scarecrow. And I'm just going to carefully try to attach the pants back on with some hot glue. Careful, because since it's made out of that plastic material, the heat gun does slightly melt it, so I'm using just little amounts of heat glue and trying to be really careful. And it's almost better to secure it fabric to fabric than the foam that is the body of the scarecrow. Now, I needed something to make the top of his overalls. So I'm going to use some of these reusable like paper towel things from the Dollar Tree. I thought, hey, that fabric is kind of similar to the fabric that they used. It's kind of a cross between paper and fabric, right? So I'm just going to kind of cut out what I think the top of his overalls should look like out of this reusable paper towel stuff. And then while I'm at it, might as well cut out one for the other scarecrow as well, because I'll probably need that. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with his pants. I'm going to paint him this color of agave. And this painted really well. I've never used this before. I bought it as a potential fabric source for crafting, and I've just been kind of hanging on to it. And hey, it works great. I will definitely be using these things more. They're actually really sturdy as far as a paper towel would go. And I'm just trying to make that have an even coat. I don't want any white showing through, so just kind of touching up the areas where I see white coming through. And since this is made out of paper and not plastic, you can definitely dry it with your heat gun. Okay, so there is the top of little Scarecrow's overalls. I just need to attach that with a little bit of heat glue along his waist. And then I'm going to glue down the top flaps of his overalls just onto the back of his shirt. Now you can kind of see, you know, the junction between the overalls and the pants. And so to cover that up, I was thinking some kind of rope. So I decided to use some of this nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to glue on a simple little rope belt. That's going to give me a little touch of coastal. And it's going to cover up the seam in between the two parts of his overalls. And just attaching that to the back with hot glue on each end. And has a cute little rope belt for our little scarecrow. Okay, so I wanted to do eyes. Now, I got these buttons at the Dollar Tree, and the bad thing about them is that they're assortment. So it's really hard to find two that match. But I found two black ones that were similar and two navy ones that were similar. And so I'll put the navy ones aside for the other scarecrow, and I'll use the black ones for this one. Now, to work on the face, I kind of need to know where the hat's going to be because I don't want to cover up the face. So I'm just going to kind of put it on there so I know where I want his little nose to be. And I'm just going to do a simple orange triangle. Makes a great little scarecrow nose with my orange paint pen. And I'm going to use my black paint pen to draw on a squiggly little scarecrow smile, complete with little stitching. I thought that was kind of cute. I got these paint pens on Amazon, and they come in so many colors. I love them. I got them on Amazon Prime Day. I will post a link below. They work really, really good. Now, I want to use buttons for the eyes, but the nose I thought needed a little bit more detail, so I'm just going in with a black pen and drawing some little stitch marks onto that too. I thought that made it look really cute. And then attaching each one of my buttons with hot glue, and the scarecrow has eyes. Okay, here's his hair that I saved originally. Just going to kind of bunch it all together in the middle. And then I'm going to take one of the strands and just tie that off into a knot to keep it together, like that. And then just attach that knot to the top of his head with a little bit of hot glue. Now his hair looks crazy, but the hat will push it down a little bit. So here is his little hat that we made. And just push the little flat part back and attach the front there with just a little dot of hot glue. And his hair goes down to the sides like it should. And then I'm going to use hot glue to attach the back of the hat to the back of the head. And you also have to glue down the little flaps. What an easy hat. I thought the hat was going to be difficult, but a scarecrow hat is actually pretty simple. And just adjusting his hat, fixing his hair, seeing how I like it. Cute. Okay, next up, I thought he needed something to cover that glue where he had a bow before. I had a raffia bow that was off of another Dollar Tree project, but the raffia was a different color than the raffia on him. So I used some of this raffia from the Dollar Tree. Oh, I hate working with this stuff. And I used like about 5 strands and just tying a simple bow and making him a little bow for his neck, the top of his shirt area. And then I am just going to glue that on. I was trying to think, I had that patch, whether I wanted to make a collar or something out of that. I decided it didn't need it. And I just go ahead and glue on the little raffia bow. And I'm going to reuse that patch on the hat, I think, again, like it was originally. I thought that was kind of cute. And so I'm just going to have it kind of peeking out of the little flap like that, kind of folded like it was before. And just attach that patch to our little burlap scarecrow hat. Isn't he looking cute? Then a little coastal feel. I had to glue on a little tiny seashell just because I had to. And I think he looks super cute. Now, I, of course, had to give him a few more details. So I had some orange tiny buttons in those button stash, and so I just glued on 2 on his shirt just to give him another little final touch. And he is complete. We have our little boy Scarecrow, complete with a stake. Now, I got these hay bales at the Dollar Tree. Note to self, open over a trash can, which is what I did. They're really messy when you open them. And I am just going to shove that stake right down into the hay bale. Now, it is secure, but you kind of have to lean it against something. Okay, Scarecrow number 2. I'm going to go really fast this time because you've already seen a lot of it. So I used the heat gun to remove the hat, and then I saved the hair and just repairing the damage I did there to this little girl. I think this is a girl. It's going to be a girl. And then I'm removing the bow from the top of the shirt with just a little bit of heat. Being really careful that I don't melt everything. And you can see how those pants just melted right away when I try to use heat gun to try to loosen the hot glue. So definitely be careful if you're using heat, but it does make it easier to get the hardened hot glue loose so that you can take off the little pants to our little scarecrow. And remember, I cut off an extra piece of that bag to use on the back of the head, and I am doing that now to finish off the back of this little scarecrow's head. And I'm using that same cashew color chalk paint to go all over the face and the head area to cover up that yellow that was on there and the existing face. Now, the face really wasn't that bad. If you wanted to skip this step, you probably could. But I think a hand-painted face is always going to give a little bit more detail and character to your piece. And I really love how these 2 scarecrows turned out. We're going to do a total of 6 scarecrows today. Definitely feeling the scarecrows. I think they look really cute. Now, here is that extra dowel that I cut to size to make the little scarecrow arms go out to the side. And I'm putting that into the back of the shirt. And just kind of touching up the face there a little bit. Now I'm ready to start working on her pants. I have that extra overalls that I cut, and I am going to go ahead and paint them in this color pumpkin. It looks the same color as the pants, and I thought it would be. It does dry a little bit darker, but that's okay. And I'm just painting that paper towel that we cut for the top of her overalls. And I'm not going to bother painting the pants because who needs to deal with that? They're orange. They're close enough, right? So I'm using my heat gun to dry that paper towel on the orange part there. And just touching up any places that you can see through. And it's a paper towel. It dries really fast. Now we have overalls for our little scarecrow. So it is time to stuff the pants. Just a little bit of polyfill from an old pillow. Kind of poke it down into the legs. Definitely this is the best thing you can do for these scarecrows is to make them not look flat because a scarecrow is not going to be flat. And I like the patch on the pants, so I'm just going to leave it on there. Just secure it a little bit better. Okay, let's get this little scarecrow dressed. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue down the shirt to the styrofoam block in there. And then I'm going to glue down the top of the overalls to the shirt. And then glue down the tabs over the shoulders for the top of the overalls. And then it's time to put on the pants. Just going to wrap it around the little post and carefully attach that with hot glue, not so I don't melt that fabric on the back. She's got clothes. Okay, and a little bit of hot glue to attach it in the front And I'm going to use some of that nautical rope like I used on the first one to make a simple little belt, just hot gluing down one end on the back, wrapping that around her waist, cutting that to size, and hot gluing that, and easy peasy. She has a belt and it covers up that area where the two parts of the overalls meet. Okay, she's coming along nicely. Okay, just trim up some extra strings. The sewing is not fantastic on these, but I think we can make it work. And fussing over her a little bit. Okay, up next, let's start making her hat. Now, I cut that extra piece of burlap for her hat so it would be the same size as the other one. And I'm just trying to roll it into a cone, do a bead of hot glue on one end, roll it into a cone, and secure. Easy peasy little scarecrow hat. Now, I'm trying to get the paint dry on her face so that I can give her a new little scarecrow face. And again, I'm using my orange paint pen to draw on a simple triangle nose. And then I'm going to do a curvy little scarecrow mouth, complete with some little stitchings with my black paint pen. And you don't have to make it squiggly. You can make it have any kind of face that it wants. But since I don't have to draw eyes on there, this is a really easy painting project. And I'm just using those two navy buttons that were about the same size for her eyes. And you can't tell that they're different really. Then once I get that dry, I'm just going to use a pen to draw a little bit of stitching on her nose. I think that gives an extra detail. My pen was getting a little clogged there. Okay, up next is hair. And I saved that raffia from before. And I'm just going to gather it all together, take one piece, tie that off in the middle like before, and hot glue that to the top of her head. And she's going to have the same kind of hat as the other one. So I'm just going to try that on. I'll push down her hair, attach it to the front with just a dot of hot glue, and then secure all the pieces of the hat to the back of her head. Now she's really similar to the other one, but instead of the pretty light blue, that kind of turned out looking almost denim-like, she has the orange overalls. And I'm going to dress her a tiny bit different. Now I was thinking she needed a bow too, so I grabbed four or five pieces of that raffia from the Dollar Tree, tied a simple bow, cut off the ends, and secured that to her shirt with just some hot glue. I didn't give her any buttons. She doesn't have a lot of her shirt visible there. I think she's fine. And I thought about almost giving her a dress to make her seem more girly, but overalls are what we need our scarecrow to wear. So what I'm going to do is use that leaf that was on her hat originally, and then maybe the combination of a seashell. Just going through my stash, finding one I like, and attaching the leaf and this seashell to her little scarecrow hat to make her a little bit different than the other one. And putting her in a hay bale from the Dollar Tree as well to help her stand up. If you want it to not be so tippy, you could definitely put that into a box or something, and they will stand up a little better, but I'm just going to lean them up against something. Okay, next to scarecrows. I got these long scarecrows from the Dollar Tree. They're super cute. I'm going to do like a his and hers again. So I just used my heat gun to take off that welcome sign so that we can make this super cute scarecrow even cuter. Now the lines didn't go all the way across, so I am trying to draw those back in, but in the end, you can't tell that I did this because I add so much to the scarecrow. I love the scarecrow. I thought it was really cute. What I didn't like is that it's just a piece of paper glued to a piece of wood. So I wanted to make this scarecrow extra special. So I'm going to go with what they started with and try to upgrade everything I can. Now I'm going to go in with a chunky brush and some ivory chalk paint, and I'm going to weather it all over. It's going to take off some of that glossy feel of the paper, And it's going to, weather it, make it look a little bit more coastal. I'm going to leave the blue overalls. They're close enough in color. I think they'd be too hard to try to repaint that. But I'm going to add all kinds of features to him to make him super cool. So just kind of weathering just all over, following that up with a baby wipe to wipe off the excess paint. And we are going to dress this guy up. Now, I really like that he had a little crow on his hat, but unfortunately, I don't have a little crow to put on there. So I am not going to do that. But I'm going to start working from the top down. So I'm going to cover his hat with burlap. So I'm going to have to paint that just with some, I'm just going to do ivory. It doesn't matter what color, just so that you can't see that design of that bird and stuff through his new hat. Now, also, you can see that he should have some like little straw hair sticking out from his hat. Now, instead of just a picture of the hair, I want to do actual hair. So I'm taking that raffia from the Dollar Tree and just cutting off pieces that I think are going to be about the right length to give him some hair. Then I'm going to kind of work a half at a time and just start hot gluing those little pieces of raffia for his hair. Like, I was really slow doing one at a time. I get way faster on the second scarecrow for sure. And I love this touch. It gave him like a 3D hair. It just totally gives him a whole different feel than the picture of hair for sure. So just securing those as I go, trying to fill in any empty spots. And I didn't quite cut enough hair for him, so I'm just cutting some more and using hot glue to finish off his little hairline. Now, this is going to be my boy scarecrow, so this is all the hair he's going to have. He's going to have like little short hair on top, peeking out from his hat. Now, I painted that top part of his hat ivory so that I can cover that with burlap. And then this little part is going to be the brim of his hat. And I don't really like that it had glitter on it, so I'm going to kind of try to do my own thing with his hat by using the back. Now I'm using this wide burlap from Walmart again to make his hat, but in hindsight I could have used the thinner burlap from the Dollar Tree in the fall section. It would have been big enough. So just securing that with hot glue along his hairline, and his hair will peek out like that, his straw hair, and then just using hot glue to attach that. And I'm trying not to mess up the original hanger, so I do try to work around that because I do have too much burlap, as you can see. I could have just trimmed it off as well too. I probably should have used the smaller burlap though. So I'm just kind of folding that over like you would do a present and gluing that down so that the string can poke out on the top and that it is still functional, but that the hat is secured to the back of his head. And this is going to be the brim of his hat. And for that, I'm going to just go in, and this is that thinner burlap, the one from the Dollar Tree, and just going to glue that to it. Now, it is in a curved pattern, so I'm just going to hot glue that on. It's a little bit too big, and then I will go around with scissors and cut out that curved pattern so that the brim of his hat will be covered in this burlap too. I think the burlap looks really coastal. I also think it reminds me of like a straw hat, something that a scarecrow would wear. And there's that part of his little hat. Just trying it on. And trying to dry some of that glue and getting it just the way I like it. Okay, so to secure that, I'm just going to use hot glue to glue that brim of his hat back on. And that's where you can see I didn't need very much burlap at the top. I totally could have used that shorter one. Now I'm going to use a pen to draw some stitching onto his little orange nose. And his face is super cute. He really doesn't need anything else. Now, working my way down, he has a bandana. Now, I thought it would be cute to make a real fabric bandana. So I'm using some of this light blue gingham fabric from the Dollar Tree, from the Crafter Square area. And I am just going to try to cut out a triangle to make a little bandana for our scarecrow. And I thought this color, it's kind of a light blue, goes with my coastal decor, kind of matches his denim overalls. And I'm kind of rolling that up and wrapping that around the little scarecrow's neck. I decided it's a little too big. It's a little bigger than the original. So I go in here and just cut off the top of that, making my triangle a little bit smaller. And again, rolling that up and just wrapping that around his neck. I'm going to use hot glue to secure both sides to the back. Now, it was kind of arched down in the center to kind of give him a rounded shape of his head. So I'm just going to use some hot glue to kind of push that down there in the center. And it also gives me like a really cool like fold in the fabric and kind of shows that it is, you know, a real scarf and multi-dimensional. So I'm just kind of arranging that, and then I liked that, so I'm going to kind of hot glue it to kind of stick up a little bit there by gluing down part of the bottom of the bandana, and it gives it a really nice flow like a bandana would look wrapped around a little scarecrow's neck. Now up next, I want to bring his little scarecrow hands and scarecrow feet into the game. And so again, using some of that raffia from the Dollar Tree, you get a whole bunch. I have just a giant thing of it. I've been using it for multiple projects and I still have lots left even after I made all these scarecrows. And so just like I did with the hair, I am just gonna hot glue little pieces on to cover up where they had a picture of the hay and give him real hay little hands. And trying to trim up, I made them a little bit too long. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I will replace the cuffs to try to make that look clean, but honestly, it's a scarecrow. Things can look a little bit rustic. So I need to do the same thing with his little scarecrow feet. And so I'm just going to use a bead of hot glue and that same length of raffia and just start piling it on there so that he has little raffia feet for the scarecrow. I am so glad that I added the raffia to these scarecrow signs. I think it made them so freaking cute. And so finishing up foot number 2. Now I said I was going to make new cuffs, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to use popsicle sticks, kind of put them on there how they would be. And I will just use scissors to cut my popsicle sticks. And that will make a perfect little cuff for his sleeve of his shirt. And I am doing the same thing on the other side. Now, when you cut these popsicle sticks, sometimes they do splinter, but they are super cheap, so you can just cut another one. Now I need to do the same thing for Scarecrow's little feet. Make little cuffs for the bottom of his overalls. So I am just kind of cutting a straight edge and then cutting one, and then I'm going to do the same thing and cut the same size for the second. And we have 2 cuffs for the bottom of his overalls to cover the top of that straw. Now I'm going to use Antique Wax by Waverly to stain these popsicle sticks. These things stain like super fast, almost immediately, and it makes them, it shows how they're made out of wood, gives them that beautiful wood grain. They look super cute. Just follow that up with a paper towel to wipe off the excess, and you have stained popsicle sticks that are going to look great on here for his cuffs. Now we're ready to attach that to our little scarecrow. And I am just going to use hot glue to glue that on, and it gave me a cute little finishing touch. And I like the contrast of the wood grain look. Now it is time to attach the cuffs to the bottom of the overalls. And if you wanted these to match the overalls, you could have totally done that, painted them in blue as well. I wanted to bring a little bit of brown into our project and hot gluing both of those cuffs on to the bottom of our little scarecrow man. Now, I'm thinking, what does he need now? Oh, patches for his legs. So he already has 2 patches on his legs, but I thought it'd be really cute if I use some of that gingham fabric from the Dollar Tree to cut little patches that are going to match his little bandana. So I am just kind of measuring and cutting what I think is going to fit, and I am just going to hot glue those on to where the patches were. Now you can see that they had the stitching already visible, so that's going to work for my patch as well. And just securing that with a little bit of hot glue, and that's just another little 3-dimensional touch to this sign, and it goes in great with his little gingham bandana. Okay, what's next for this little guy? I wanted to decorate his hat, and I have this blue gingham or buffalo check ribbon from the Dollar Tree as well, and it's a perfect match. So I'm just going to do that around the brim of his little scarecrow hat, and then it's kind of arched, just kind of pulling it and then hot gluing that down on the back, and that matches perfectly with his little bandana. And of course your girl has to do something coastal, so I'm just going to glue one of these starfish that I picked up this summer at the Dollar Tree in a 3-pack and the coastal decor. And I'm just going to hot glue that down. With the starfish, you kind of have to glue the legs. They kind of stick down more than the center. And look how cute our little coastal scarecrow is. I love him. Okay, now this is the girl version, using my heat gun to take off the brim of her hat. And I am going to speed this one way up because she's going to be really similar to the last one. Now, I was doing this during Hurricane Ida, and I was watching storm chasers, and they were rescuing people that their cars were underwater, and they were live streaming on YouTube, and oh my gosh, I was so stressed out, but it did help me pass the time. Now, to work on her little hat, I used a little orange paint to cover up the sunflowers that were on her hat, and I'm going to use this orange burlap from the Dollar Tree for her hat, and see how that is totally wide enough. I didn't need to use that big wide for the other scarecrow, but it's a little too dark of an orange, so I'm going to use my pumpkin chalk paint just to go over and brighten that up. And your girl's camera died, so all you missed was me gluing on her hair. Very similar to the first one, except she has longer hair on the side, and I used that rafia, and I kind of forgot to distress her. So I'm using ivory chalk paint and a chunky brush and a baby wipe to kind of distress her all over like I did on the first one. I'm going to use a pen to draw stitching on her little nose to make her look extra cute. And then I'm going to cover the brim of her hat with that orange burlap too. I really wish this burlap was the shade that I painted. It would go more with my decor, but I'm going to work with it. So once I get that glued to the brim of the hat, I'm just trimming that to size. And I am going to go in and paint that too to lighten the color of orange. It goes more with her. It goes more with my decor. So I'm not even going to bother to let that dry. I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue that on her head. And it can dry once it's attached to her little hat. And she has a little orange burlap scarecrow hat. Now, I did not have anything that I could use for this scarf, but I did have this orange gingham or buffalo check ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I thought I could just use maybe multiple pieces to try to replicate her little pretty scarf she has wrapped around her neck. And it's kind of curved, so I'm kind of just hot gluing in areas and kind of bending it as I go. And it kind of gave it a little bit of a ruffled appearance. I maybe should have cut the sides off the ribbons to make it appear to be more one piece of ribbon, but a wider ribbon would definitely work really well for this. But I kind of wanted to go with that gingham because I used gingham on the other one. And so I'm trying to make this work just by using 3 instead of 1 because I need it to be super wide. And this is the end of the scarf. And I'm just kind of hot gluing that a little bit under that last piece so it kind of peeks out like that to make the bottom of her little scarf. And I could have done that with that orange burlap too, but I think the gingham adds something to it. Now I am going to use that orange burlap to cover up her little pocket. I'm just kind of trying to estimate and cut that to size. And I'm just going to hot glue her little pocket onto her overalls. And again, I'm going to paint it that pumpkin color just to brighten it up and make it match her hat. Easy peasy. Okay, up next for our little girl scarecrow, she's going to need hay hair too. So I am just going in and cutting pieces. Well, I've already done her hair, so I guess this is her feet and her hands. And this is what I am like getting super fast. I'm just like, do a bead of hot glue, grab a huge chunk, glue a huge chunk on there at a time. Since I'm going to do the cuffs over it too, that's going to help secure it. So you definitely don't have to do one piece at a time. And that will definitely speed up the project. Now I am going to work on her little scarecrow hands as well. And using hot glue and that same length of raffia to give her little hay hands. And I did the hair on her head the same as I did the first one. I just made it a little bit longer on the sides like the original was to make her look like she has a little bit longer hair. And I was working late into the night crafting these for you guys, trying to get this video out. So that is why my camera kept dying. And I am cutting the popsicle sticks like I did before to make cuffs for her sleeves and cuffs for the bottom of her pants. And just like before, I am staining that with the Antique Wax by Waverly. And then just going to wipe that off with a paper towel. And then I am just going to attach those with a little bit of hot glue. And those are going to be the new cuffs for her shirt and for her pant legs. And it covers up the top of that raffia, makes it look super clean, and gives another 3D texture to our little scarecrow sign. And I'm trimming off the bottom. I had it overhanging just a little bit. And then I'm going to use that same orange and white gingham ribbon to decorate her little orange burlap hat. It kind of arches, so I'm just kind of gluing it around the arch and then gluing that onto the back of the sign. I was trying to make the scarf look a little bit more like one piece by hot gluing the pieces down a little bit and ruffling them up because it's kind of curved the way that it goes. And I think it'll work. Then I decided she needed a little seashell in her pocket, so I'm just using hot glue and a seashell and attaching that to my little scarecrow's pocket. And I'm going to give her a sand dollar. I got these sand dollars at Dollar Tree this summer too, and they came in a 3-pack as well. And it's pretty heavy, so I'm just attaching that with some hot glue to the brim of her hat, but on the other side of the boy one. Now, I thought he needed a shell in his pocket too, so I'm going to hot glue a shell to the little boy scarecrow, and look how cute they look together. I love these guys. So fun and coastal. Now, I thought she had the little ribbon effect on her scarf, and so I decided to kind of give that, not ribbon, ruffle effect. So I kind of tried to do that with the rest of it to make it look a little bit uniform. And then I am super pleased with how she looks. Okay, the last 2 projects. I'm going to try to make these little hanging scarecrows from the Dollar Tree. Little stand-up scarecrows using some of these Welcome Fall signs from the Dollar Tree. To make like a tall stand-up sign. Now, I don't want the writing to show through because some of this back sign will be visible when I put the little scarecrow together. So I'm using ivory chalk paint to cover up the words and designs. Now it has buffalo check on the sides, and that's totally fine. So I'm just going to leave that. Now it did take about 3 coats of the ivory chalk paint to cover up the words. And the reason I'm using ivory is because I'm going to try to make these look like a coastal beachy wood. And so I'm going to do the antique wax over the white paint method that you've seen me do before. Now to take apart my scarecrow, I am just ripping out the ribbon from the back, staples kind of going flying. And we have our 3 pieces to our little scarecrow. I don't know if these are really boy or girl, but kind of go with the same kind of color scheme, the blue and the orange. So for him, I am going to do this agave color, and I'm going to repaint his pants. The chalk paint is going to give just a better texture. I can get it exactly the color that I want, and I think it looks way better than the paper just glued to the wood that they do at the Dollar Tree. And I am painting the little scarecrow arms that color of agave as well. Now I went ahead and did both stands because I'm going to need one for the second scarecrow as well. And here I am with the Antique Wax by Waverly, working in one direction, going over that white paint to give me that like really easy light wood grain pattern. And the reason it looks so light is because I'm going over the white with the antique wax, and super easy technique. Now to work on this little scarecrow, I'm going to go ahead and do another coat of agave. You can kind of see stuff coming through from the original design onto my pants, and I'm going to touch up the arms as well. Now that sign really isn't that obnoxious. I don't like the one that the other scarecrow has. I almost left it, but it has glitter on there, and I could not do it. So I am going to redo the sign, and I am just making sure my chalk paint is dry on my pants, and I am ready to hot glue the pants onto my sign just like that. And these, I'm going to hot glue the little pieces together like that. And we're going to have a little stand-up scarecrow. So first step here is I'm going to use my sanding block to try to get that glitter off that sign so that when I paint over it, it's not going to be really obvious. And using my little ladybug to clean up my glitter and trying to get that prepared. Now I'm going to make this sign that would affect like I did for the other sign. So I'm going to need a base coat of this ivory. Now I want the little straw hands to stay there. So I'm trying to go in with a small brush and try to go around those. And paint the sign ivory. And then I am going to go over that ivory with the Antique Wax by Waverly again. And try to make it look like our little scarecrow is holding a little wooden sign that I can then decorate. So trying to get a good base coat of the ivory and to cover up the design that was already down there. And using my heat gun to speed that up. Now, my first attempt at this did not turn out great. Because I was trying to work around the hands with my Antique Wax by Waverly. It's really important when you're doing the Antique Wax by Waverly to work all in one fluid direction to kind of give you that wood grain effect when you're going over paint. And so I do end up cutting that part out just to make the video a little bit shorter, but I did have to repaint the sign ivory after my first attempt at making this. So this is my second attempt. I decided I needed to go over everything in one direction. I don't care that I already painted the arms and stuff like that and the hands. I can just go back with a baby wipe and try to find my little scarecrow hands and try to remove the paint from them. And that turned out way better than my first attempt. And so I'm going to need to repaint the arms on there. So I'm trying to wipe off the excess antique wax and then just go in with a little brush and my agave chalk paint and just paint his arms back on. That's not the way I wanted to do it, but that's definitely the way I needed to do it to get that nice wood grain pattern without starting and stopping my brush. And that looks pretty good, like that. And I'm giving another coat on his sleeves to try to brighten up that brown color and bring out his little agave blue sleeves to his little scarecrow shirt. And just trying to get the finish on there just the way I like it, and make sure that the edges are stained as well. And I'm going to use some of these little wood cutouts from the Dollar Tree. They're fall words. And I'm going to use the one that says Hello Autumn. And I'm just going to go over that with my foam brush and that ivory chalk paint to make it ivory. Just going to go in with a little skewer to get any drips out of there that I don't want to be seen. And I'm going to attach that to our little sign with hot glue. Now, I don't know what I was thinking. I kind of went all over, and you can totally see that hot glue through. It was not the right way to do that. I should have put the hot glue on that line on the back of the sign. So I'm trying to clean up the hot glue, and then I'm like, oh, you know, I'm probably causing more damage than I'm helping trying to remove the hot glue. So I give up. Good enough. Now I'm going to go in and distress this all over a little bit to try to make it look more coastal and to kind of hide my hot glue. Excuse me. And then go back in and distress my little Hello Autumn with the Antique Wax by Waverly and a chunky brush, and then go over that with just a baby wipe to remove the excess, because I want it to look mostly white with a weathered stain. Then I'm just using an ink pen to draw back on the ends of the straw that's kind of painted over to give that an outline. Super easy. I wanted it to be really thin like the original outline, so an ink pen worked better than a paint pen in that application. So we are about ready to attach this middle part to our scarecrow. And I am just going to use a little hot glue and put that there just above the waist of his pants, leaving enough room for our little scarecrow head. Now this scarecrow was like white, like stark white. So I wanted him to have a little bit of tan color. So I'm using that Antique Wax by Waverly and then just wiping it straight down to kind of give him a weathered, stained look. But I didn't want to mess up the hair on the scarecrow, so I'm trying to be like super careful and try not to get it on that area. But if I do, I'm just using a baby wipe to try to touch up the little hair areas that got some stain on there. But I'm trying to give him a consistent little weathered stain on his little face. I want him to have an orange scarecrow nose like my other projects. His existing green nose though was too dark though, and I couldn't get it to the right color of orange. You could kind of see that color shining through. So what I end up doing is I go in with just a tiny little brush and some ivory chalk paint just to give a brighter base coat for me to then go over that again with my orange paint pen and to draw that on, and it looked way better. And again, just a simple triangle. Scarecrow noses are simple, very easy. So once I get that on there, I'm drawing that with my heat gun. His face is pretty cute. I don't really need to do much to him. I think it's going to work, but I don't want him to have a green hat. So I'm just going to use some of that burlap ribbon from the fall section at the Dollar Tree. And it is big enough, but I don't want you to be able to see the green hat through the burlap. So I'm going to do a base coat of ivory. Doesn't matter what color you do, just something so that you can't see the original little hat through the burlap. And it's almost the exact right size. There is kind of a little arch I try to cut out to make that go around his face. And I'm just going to attach that ribbon to the hat with a little bit of hot glue, and it kind of looks like a burlap or a straw hat. Now the excess fabric, I'm just going to go around and trim that with a pair of scissors up close to the wood, and easy peasy. Now I kind of wanted there to be a little bit of difference between the brim and the top, so I'm just going to cut out an extra triangle for the top and glue that on as well. And it kind of gave me a little bit difference between the brim and the top of the hat. Now I'm going to use a pen and just draw some stitching on that little orange nose that we painted on our little scarecrow face. And just touching up the staining on his face. And we have a little scarecrow head for our little boy scarecrow. So I'm just going to attach that to the top of that sign with some hot glue, just peeking out over the top. That sign was almost the perfect size to put our little scarecrow man together. Now I wanted to use a pen to draw back on his little cuffs of his overalls and to kind of go around his shirt and bring out that original design. And again, I used that instead of a paint pen because I needed the lines to be really fine. And then I'm going to distress them all over with just a chunky brush and some more of that ivory chalk paint to give him that little coastal feel on his little overalls. And he's coming together very nicely. I want to dress up his hat a little bit, kind of thinking a shell or something. And then I was like, ooh, you know, maybe like a little tiny starfish. And I have a little tiny starfish in my little stash of shells that I got on Amazon the other day. And I was like, ooh, that would be perfect. Now that reminded me that I do actually have starfish ribbon that I got at the Dollar Tree this summer with the coastal stuff. And it's light blue, so I think it will match. And look how cute that is. So perfect little coastal touch to my little scarecrow. And I'm going to have that go around as a ribbon on the top of his little scarecrow hat. And just attach that to the back with a little bit of hot glue. And I'm still going to use that starfish to decorate. And I'm just going to attach that to his hat as a little decor with a little tiny piece of hot glue because it's a little tiny starfish. Now, originally this scarecrow had patches, so I do go in and do that. But first, I'm going to just glue in a giant Jenga block. You can use whatever you have. You're going to need something to weigh it down so it doesn't fall over. And I'm just going to use that same burlap ribbon to cut out those patches I was talking about. He had a patch on each leg before, and so that's going to match in nicely with his little hat. And I'm just going to put them wherever, one on his knee and one up high on the other leg, and just cutting little tiny squares and hot gluing those down just gives another little texture and a little final touch to our Hello Autumn coastal scarecrow. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the little girl one. And again, she kind of looks exactly like the other one, but she's going to be our girl one. And I'm going to make her orange. So I'm using this pumpkin color chalk paint from Waverly, from Walmart. And going over her maroon pants and painting her new pants on. Leaving the little drawing of the straw feet exposed. And I'm going over with a second coat to try to get better coverage. And this is the sign. It looks nothing like the first sign that she's holding. And I was like, there's no way I can make that really look uniform if I were to leave the existing sign on the first one. So again, it's got glitter. So I'm just using my sanding block to remove the glitter. And then I'm going to go use ivory to kind of go over all the places of the sign, because I'm going to do that same wood finish on this one as well. And the little tight areas, I'm just going in with a tiny brush to try to get that as close as I can to the little straw hands without painting over those. And I did think about using raffia to give hair to this, but on this tiny scale, I think it would have been really difficult. And I was kind of tired of working with raffia at this point, for real. So I'm trying to get a good coverage on that and covering up what was on this sign before. it was a lot darker, so I'm trying to brighten that up. And that's going to give me the good base coat for the Antique Wax by Waverly to do the little wood technique. And then I'm going to do another coat of orange on the pants to cover up any design that was on there before. I'm not bothering with the sleeves yet because I know I'm going to go over here with that Antique Wax by Waverly and cover it all up. Then I'm just going in with a baby wipe and trying to find where his little straw hands are and wiping the Antique Wax off of that part. And just kind of touching it up as I go. Now, I think maybe on this one, I didn't let the ivory chalk paint dry quite enough because I did struggle a little bit with this one. But I'm just trying to touch it up and trying to get a uniform look to the wood. When it's kind of wet like that, the Antique Wax kind of goes into the white paint. It gives kind of more like a streaky layer, but that's okay. So I'm going to go in with just a little bit of ivory to distress that a little bit, and that's going to brighten that up because I thought this one was a little darker than the first one. And I'm just going back and forth with the two colors until I get exactly the finish I'm going for, trying to keep the straw parts of his hands uncovered. Then I'm going to go in with that pumpkin chalk paint and paint on her little sleeves where she had arms before. Again, working around her little straw hands. And definitely important to do this step last, as you're going to mess it up with the Antique Wax if you were to do that first. Then I'm going to use some ivory chalk paint and distress all over her little orange overalls and also her little orange sleeves. Ready to attach the pants to our sign that we had made before when we made the first one. And I am ready to paint the sleeves of the scarecrow and distress those with the ivory chalk paint as well. Sorry, I totally spaced out there for a second. And we can start working on the sign that this little scarecrow is holding. I'm still struggling with the way that it was stained, but I'm like, girl, let it go. Okay, so this is another one of those fall wood cutouts from the Dollar Tree. You get like 6 in a package. They're super cool. The other one said autumn, so this one says fall. It says Welcome Fall, and I painted it ivory chalk paint. And drying that, I'm going to be way more careful. When I hot glue this one on, I'm going to use that like straight line of wood on the back and a bead of hot glue on that. And it came out way cleaner than the first one. So learn from my mistakes. I'm going to use a chunky brush in that Antique Wax by Waverly and weather those letters and wipe off the excess stain with my little baby wipe, and we're ready to attach the middle part of the scarecrow to our sign. And now it's time to work on the little scarecrow head. So I'm using the Antique Wax by Waverly again to stain the face because it was like really stark white. The face itself was cute, but I just wanted to then use a paper towel to wipe off the excess, trying not to mess up her little straw hair. And you can still see her face through that stain. And then I'm going to paint her little hat ivory as well because I'm going to make her a burlap hat as well, and I don't want that peeking through. And I'm going to go ahead and paint her little scarecrow nose ivory as well because I know that that orange chalk paint needs that as a base coat. So here's my little orange paint pen, and I'm just going in and drawing on a simple little triangle for her nose. I'm going super fast here because it's kind of the same as the first scarecrow. I'm using this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree to measure and cut out a piece big enough for her hat, and then hot gluing that on. Then I'm going to use scissors to cut around the edges of her hat. She's got a little bit different shaped hat than the other one, which is good. It gives her a little bit of unique character. But again, I'm going to cut out a second piece just for that little top part, just to have a little bit of difference between the brim of the hat and the top part of the hat. And just hot gluing down the sides, trying to cover up the painted area as much as I can with that burlap for her little straw hat. Now, what does she need? I was thinking I don't have anything like the other one, but I do have this like burlap and orange gingham ribbon that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I thought that would match nicely with her. So I just hot glued that onto the back, and I'm trying to decorate her hat as well. I'm going to go on the other side, and she's going to get a little seashell for her hat. And I love the little coastal touches. Who says you can't have a little coastal thrown in with your scarecrows? And fall, I like to personalize projects, but if you don't have a coastal feel in your house, just decorate her hat with a leaf or a flower or something else. Ready to attach her little head with a little bit of hot glue to our original sign. And look how cute these guys look together. Just trying to make sure that the signs are distressed, but I think she needs a couple patches for her overalls as well. So I just cut out some more of that burlap into little squares and attach those to her legs. Now I'm going to put this giant Jenga block in. You can use whatever you have to weigh that down. I don't really need that hanger part. I can pull that out. And now she can stand up freely just like the little blue scarecrow. Aren't they adorable? I love them too. Okay, final reveal time. Here is the little stand-up scarecrows that we made sticking out of little hay bales using a Dollar Tree scarecrow and a Dollar Tree hay bale. We have a little touch of nautical with a little seashell on the little boy's hat and a nice blue color for his overalls and a little coastal rope for his belt. Now she's got a little seashell on her hat too, but she has orange overalls, a little coastal belt, and I stuffed the little scarecrows and made them have their arms stick straight out like scarecrows, and I love how they turned out. I think they're super cute. Now here's our next set of little scarecrows. These guys are totally going coastal with their little hat decor, and I love the fact that I made them so 3D. I gave the raffia hair. They have fabric patches, fabric bandanas and scarves, and I love the starfish and the sand dollar decor that I did on their hat. He's got a little shell in his pocket, all these textures with the fabric and the raffia and the seashells just made these already cute scarecrows that much cuter. I love you guys. And the last final set of scarecrows we did was the last set where we made the little stand-up scarecrows. And this is what they look like standing up, holding their Hello Autumn and Welcome Fall signs. I did one in the agave blue and one in the pumpkin orange. And I love them. I think they turned out so good. And they look so much nicer than the hanging one. He's got a coastal vibe going with his starfish hat. And he has the little burlap patches on his overalls. And so does she. But she is wearing the orange today. And she has a little seashell on her little hat. Aren't they cute together? They're so adorable. And this is what all of the scarecrow projects look like. We made 6 scarecrows, and they all have a little bit of a coastal feel, and they're all made using just Dollar Tree scarecrows, but I think they all turned out fantastic. What do you think? Which one was your favorite? Please comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. My channel is growing, and I need it to, so let's get out there and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed my video, and I can't wait to make another one for you. Have fun decorating. Bye.